Hello Flosstube friends. I am going to be working on Maria Wales Newson today. We're nearing the end of the month and I am working on this as part of a stitch along being hosted by Judy Hall in the Friends of Hands Across the Sea Samplers Facebook group. I've talked about this sampler many times and today I figured I'd pull her out and she can be the subject of my stitch along video today. I was thinking that I wouldn't pull this out until Sunday, the last few days of the month I would work on it, but I woke up this morning and was asking myself, well, what am I going to be working on today? And nothing immediately came to mind. I was between a few different projects, and so I thought, you know what, if I can't make a decision, what I really should do is work on Maria here. So I am working on the June section, which is basically identical to what the April section was because that was just on the opposite side. And that April section just took me a couple of days. It took me, I think, an afternoon, the full next day, and then the following morning. So basically just 2 days, I think is all it took. So I was counting on this same section only taking 2 days, but I thought, why tempt fate? Why wait for the last couple days of the month to try to get this done? Why not just do it now? I am starting my thread. Sometimes I start with a pin stitch. Sometimes I catch the tail as I go, and sometimes if it's convenient, I just bury the thread under stitches that have already been laid. You can see that I am working more on the border here. Just yesterday, or was it this morning? No, it's just this morning. I was just telling you this morning. Why did I think this was over 2 days? Just this morning, because it's been a long day, that's why. Just this morning, I got this tree done, which is the same as this one here. And then I got the deer done, same as over here. So you can see this was April's section right here. The house was May's section, and now we're into June. But again, we are nearing the end of the month. I need to just get this section done. And there are no cross stitch pulleys, but I have kept up with this stitch along thus far. So I hate to bail out when the assignments are actually getting smaller and easier for this piece. It's been a challenging one just because of the stitch count required. The first 3 months assignments were particularly large and took a lot of stitching. I think each one of those sections took somewhere between 5 and 7 days. So that's a lot of stitching. It takes up a lot of your month, right? But it'll be nice to have this very large, impressive sampler done by the end of the year. All right, I need to just verify where I am. I know I've got several stitches to do before I start a leaf, but I just want to make sure I'm still nowhere near. The border is pretty easy, very regular. Maria Wales Newson here, she was a very neat and tidy girl, I think, with a nice symmetrical sampler. But it does require some counting. So I need to make sure that as I come up to the leaf that's on this border, I don't miss it. I would rather stitch the leaves as I go rather than go back and add them in later. But you stitch in whatever way suits you best. I like the big flowers in this border. They're very easy to put in. Once you do the outlining, then they're very easy to fill in. It's a lot of stitches in those flowers, but it goes quickly because, it's basically just block stitching after you outline it. Let me check here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I don't have that yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But I am close. So it's good that I stopped to count. 9. I stitch the leaves as I go. It helps me make sure that I have the right length in these arms of the borders, but also that way I start and stop less often, I feel. But the leaves are not my favorite thing to do. I have made mention of this before. Even though the house there in the middle of the sampler is more than 5,000 stitches and took a long time to stitch, I found that more enjoyable than any of these other sections. I find these leaves just a little bit tedious, but once you have them in, they're easy enough to then fill in and continue on with the border. Okay, that side should have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can usually guess the number of stitches just by sight, but I do go ahead and manually count each individual stitch just to make sure that I don't have any issues. Now you're probably going to see me do something a little weird here. I'm sure there are others of you out there that stitch in this same way, but it may also be confusing to those who are unfamiliar with this method. You can see these leaves. Let me show you. So the leaf I am stitching here is this same leaf. The orientation is the same and the size is the same. So as I am stitching this, it probably looks like I am skipping stitches. That is exactly what I am doing, but I do it so that on the return trip, it's easy to go back and find my path back to the start of this leaf in the top left corner. So that's what I am doing. Again, I'm sure many of you stitch this way, but I also know that many of you just stitch each individual cross as you go. I do not do that. I don't care to do that. So I do this. It's probably a little weird when you look at it, but it makes sense to me. So I continue with it. Okay, 1, 1, 2, 1. Okay. Yeah. Haven't stitched on this piece for quite a while, actually. It is nice that when you look at a piece this large, the dimensions are something like 300 by 400. It's not that exactly, but I know one of the stitch counts, the longer side, it's 400 and something. But it's nice to look at something so large and know that with assignment stitching, by breaking it up into different sections, you can get such a huge piece done just working on it a few days a month. All right, so I've got that section there. All right. I wonder if any of you are working on Maria Wales Newson here as well, and if you are finding that you like her, or maybe she's been a little too tiresome for you. I don't know. It seems like a lot of people have been keeping up with the stitch along, which I think is good. It's promising. I don't think so many people would be keeping up if they didn't enjoy the stitching or think she was a beautiful project. There are so many big, beautiful samplers to choose from. I've been spending time regularly going through the different charts that I have and asking myself what I might want to start next. And I don't know. I have some favorites, you know, those are the ones that stay on top of the pile in the drawer of hats charts. But you never really know what's gonna be screaming my name, saying, start me, start me. All right, did I do that correctly? Yes, I did. Now, you'll see how I'm coming back. And I put my needle and thread down in this hole. And so when I carry back up to this hole, the thread on the back is not going over any blank space. You can see that. And then same here, I go down this hole and then I move to the left and I'm able to complete this stitch right here. And then coming back up here, again, the length of thread on the back is flush against stitching and is not in no man's land. So I will complete this stitch again and move to the left. So that's why I stitch in that way. Of course, I could just complete each X as I go, but I've talked about how I don't care for that. So I am Danish to the extreme, for better or worse. But I don't mind it, and I've developed some tricks that help me move along, move around a pattern or a motif just fine. Now you can hear the needle squeaking through the fabric. I have my fabric very tight within the hoop. This is a Hardwick Manor hoop, and the pin on it has room for a flathead screwdriver, and I use that, absolutely I use that to tighten the hoop so I can get my linen very, very tight within it. And I've never had any problems getting hoop marks out. I know that is the concern of some stitchers. Will my hoop marks come out at the end of a project? I haven't had any problems. Between the moistening and ironing of a piece and then the work that my framer does, never seems to be an issue. All right, unfortunately, my thread has begun to untwist a bit in the middle here, which doesn't happen often, but it does happen, and it's something that I need to be aware of as I'm stitching. And what I mean is that this thread that is very highly twisted has begun to untwist there in the middle. I continue to move my needle along the thread, so it's not just sitting at the same place the entire time. So I usually start with a very long tail, and then I will tug at the needle every few stitches to pull it along so that the stress is not, you know, the same part of the thread is not stressed for the entire stitching process. All right, just had a little bit of a knot. Still have a little bit of a knot. Trying to pull it out on the back. See if I can manage that. Well, I pulled the thread out of my needle. Let's see what we got going on. This happens sometimes as well. So I just have a little slip knot here. No big deal. I just put my needle in the loop and then tug on one side. You notice that it didn't pull it, and so then I tugged on the other side of the thread and it pulled it closed just like that, and you end up with this teeny tiny little loop that then you can pull out. No big deal. Okay, so now I need to re-thread my needle. Let's see. I'm going to allow the thread to relax. I'll get that back in there. All right, good to go. Okay, I think I'm going here, is that right? Yes, it is. So you can see that again, I am skipping a stitch down here compared to this leaf. You can see I've skipped that stitch there, but that's all part of the plan. So I move over here. Come down this way. And I know for many this probably looks like a convoluted way to stitch this leaf, but it works for me. So that's what I have been doing all around the border. And it works just fine. I do this sort of thing on every piece. move around motifs in this way. I have been watching the series Cranford, the BBC series starring Judi Dench. It's been really, really funny, really good. I did not care for the book at all, but it popped up on my Hulu suggestions, and I saw the cast, and I was like, you know what? I think I'll give that a try, and it has been wonderful. And I'm sure if you are familiar with British television, there will be many familiar faces to you. Several people on the show were on Downton Abbey. Others have been in the 2005 Pride and Prejudice, things like that. But it's been really good, so enjoyable way to pass the time. I would recommend it. All right, 1, 2, 3. Okay. From the base of one leaf to the base of the next, I should say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 of these stitches. 1, 2, 3. See, it's been so long. It's been since April that I've stitched any of this border. I do not remember the pattern, but I know that it's regular. Okay. Let me count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can move up this way and continue on with this side of the leaf. There we go. I am using 46 count Lichen from Tabby Cat Linens. This is the called for. It's a nice greenish gray color, kind of like an old penny. And it looks very nice with all these colors. I have a chunk of it left, or I should say I will have a chunk of it left when I can finally cut the bottom off of this piece. And I wonder what I'll use the rest of it for. Something. I will find a use for it because it's very nice. And then I'm using the called for 103s. I do think I said that, but just want to reiterate that. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let me make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. And again, there would be a stitch there on the left. I am skipping that to move upward, because of course I will be able to get that on the way back. I wonder if any of you form these leaves in the same way. I'd be curious to know, or if you do anything like this as you stitch. Number 2, and now 1. My apologies if the squeaking is a little tiresome, but I like my fabric tight. In fact, one night I was stitching in the living room, and my husband Ryan, he was like, is that your needle going in and out of the fabric? And I said, yeah, it is. I said, does it bother you? He was like, no, I just can't believe how loud it is. He's not easily bothered by things like that, but it was funny that he was curious about it. He couldn't believe that something so small could make so much noise. I twisted my needle there counterclockwise. That's what I need to do to keep it from twisting up. You can also just allow your needle and thread to hang, and that will have the same effect. That will untwist it. But to save myself having to pull this off camera, I can just twist it like that. One of these leaves, I don't remember which one, but one of these leaves, I was stitching it, and this one little stitch that hangs off the corner, the very tip of the leaf, it was on the next page. It was on a page break. And I had forgotten to stitch it, even though I had stitched so many other leaves before. I had forgotten about that little stitch on the end of the leaf. So I think I get done with the leaf. I'm moving along the rest of the border, turn the page, and then I see what I missed. I'm like, are you kidding me? But of course, I had to go back and put it in. It's just so annoying having to get a length of floss to put in one stitch. It was so annoying. I don't know that otherwise I would have cared and bothered putting that extra little stitch in, but our fearless leader, our fearless Sal leader, has been very, very careful, very vigilant, and often detects missing stitches. Although I will say, I, unbeknownst to myself and the Sal leader and anyone else who saw my post, did miss a stitch. In, I think it was my first assignment, and I only caught it because in the third assignment, which was basically the same as the first assignment, just flipped, and there were the top two corners, I came to a point where I thought, oh, this is a weird little random stitch, just one stitch in one color. That was like nothing else around it. And I thought to myself, I wonder if I did this on January section. Nope, I had not. So I got credit for January's section, and ultimately I did go back and put in that missing stitch. And I know that there have been other people who have been given credit for certain assignments when there are, to my eye, missing stitches, and that doesn't really bother me. So I didn't fess up, but I also don't call anybody else out when they have missing stitches. I figure that is the job of the Sal leader, to determine what passes and what doesn't. It's all supposed to be in good fun, and I think if we have thousands and thousands of stitches and are just missing one, that's not really a big deal. Like I said, I'll just be happy when this is done at the end of the year and I have this big, beautiful thing to send off to the framer. I think she's going to be a little surprised. She's going to be like, what do I do with this? I think it's also going to be so large that it'll be part of a batch that I ultimately pick up from the framer. Lisa Manton is my framer, and she lives just 2 hours from me. So it has happened that sometimes I ship her finished projects, and then she does all the stretching and framing and cutting of moldings and putting glass in. She makes it a perfect finished polished product. But then she either ships them to me or I can go pick them up. 1, 2, 3. And because this piece is going to be so large, I think I'll go and pick this up when she's done with it, whenever that is. Of course, I won't be able to send it off until, December or January, whenever I really get it done and then get it in the mail to her. Maybe it'll work out that, I don't know, I'm hoping to send her several things in September when she's back to work. So maybe I can send her things in September, go pick up those things in December after they've been framed, and then bring her this at the same time. And then pick up this sometime next spring, because I don't really need it right away. I don't need it framed and finished on the wall right away. But if she's got it, then she can take her time selecting possible moldings for it. That would be nice. Thinking something on the darker side. I don't like to go with black, but a dark brown I think would work well for this. We've got this really dark green that runs all the way around the piece. So I think a dark color frame would work well. Okay, my thread here is falling apart just a little bit. So even though I could get several more stitches out of it, I am going to end it right here in this leaf, and then I'll be able to pull another length and carry on from there. And I'll show you guys how I do that. I know many of you do this as well. I just bury my thread under the back. I go under a couple stitches one way, and then I'll go under a few more stitches another way. I feel like that locks it in. And you can do, I would suggest doing at least 4 one way, but I like to do it, I like to run my needle under several, just to be sure. All right, and that's it. I'm gonna snip that off. Call it good for now. There we go. So, on my way to finishing June's section. If you have any questions about anything that you've seen here, please do check the drop-down box below. I will link my All About Needlework Tools video. So if you have questions about the things that you've seen me use here in this video, you can check them out in that video. But if you have any other questions or comments, you may leave them here or find me on Instagram at @StitchStitchBead and send me a message that way. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this was enjoyable and you got some stitching done. I will talk to you guys next week. Happy stitching.